Thank you for the introduction, and hello everyone, and welcome to TestCon 2025. And before starting, I have a simple question. Who has experience with Windows test automation? Please raise your hand. Okay, so I see quite a few hands. That's really good. And in this session, I will try to answer, is it really possible to build a scalable and robust desktop Windows apps test automation? And from this session, you can expect that it will be a practical one. And I will share the present state of the Windows test automation ecosystem. I will also show you the market analysis that I performed of available tools. I will also tell you why FlyUI is currently the best tool in the market. I will also share practical tips how you could improve your Windows test automation. And then I will speculate what could be the future of Windows automation. And all of those things will be based on my personal experience. And talking about my experience, again, I'm Lukas Makaravicius. I have more than 6 years experience in QA automation field. I'm mainly focused around native clients, and I have somewhere around 5 years experience with Windows clients. And during those 5 years, I was working at Proton, and the product was VPN. And to be honest, VPN product is quite notoriously difficult to automate because not only you have like regular automation problems, you have to take into account networking conditions. There are also lots of moving parts inside the app. It's also quite difficult to integrate those tests inside the CI. And even if I had those issues, I still managed to achieve something really beautiful, robust, and stable. So I will share how. So let's first analyze how does the current ecosystem looks like for Windows automation. And I just those three memes represent this state really well, because when you are trying to automate your apps, you see that there are not that many frameworks. And out of those frameworks, they are also outdated. And if you want to get some help, the community is quite small and literature is really limited. And even though if we have those problems, Windows automation is still really relevant, because if we're going to check the statistics, so in 2018, Microsoft shared those accurate numbers that we have 30 million unique apps, there are 170 million unique versions, and we have 700 million users. Then let's check what stats we have now. So those numbers are more or less speculative because Microsoft did not really share it, but the estimated number is somewhere around 50 million, and we have 1.4 billion active users, which means that the number of active users doubled. So the relevancy is still there. Also, another well-known fact is that Windows still holds the majority in desktop operating systems world. So the relevancy will still be there. So let's understand how Windows automation works before digging deeper. So Microsoft created this engine called UI automation. It's really not original name, but that's how it's called. And the purpose of this engine is to just enable programmatic access to UI. And on your right, you can see the inspection screen of the UI, and all of those values are returned from UI automation engine. And let's check where it can be also applied. So it's being used also in accessibility tools. So you have NVDA, Microsoft Narrator, JAWS. So all of those apps are getting attributes from those elements and narrating it. Then another use case is AI agents. So there are two ways how you can interact with UI using AI agent. You can either provide what you see on the screen and it analyzes the image and then tries to perform the action, or you can try to provide the UI tree and then it can analyze it and perform some actions. And that's where UI automation engine kicks in. And then the last use case is obviously test automation. And actually, almost all test automation frameworks uses it under the hood. What differs is how it's being used. And let's go and let's try to analyze those tools. And the first tool is Appium. And this was my first tool that I used for Windows automation. And it seemed like it was a really good tool at the beginning, because if we see at the advantages of it is that it is the most popular tool in the market, which means that we have active community, we can get documentation. It can be maybe also maintained by the community. We will see later if it did. It is also a multi-platform tool, which means that I can easily onboard my Android engineers to write Windows tests. It is also officially maintained by Microsoft. You can see that in the Microsoft repository, we have WinUpDriver project. And it also supports C# and Python, which means that I have some options in which language I want to write those tests. And even if we have those advantages, this type of automation, this framework is not scalable, because if the first problem that we have, it has slow performance. So you can see here, we are entering credentials. So far, performance is okay. We are waiting until we are logged in. Then model is closed. Then we are trying to connect. And then it's frozen for 5 seconds. Then let's wait a bit. It disconnects, and then it's frozen again. And I encounter those random freezes quite frequently, and there are some ways how you can work around it, but those are band-aid solutions that can also increase your flakiness, so this is not desirable. And another issue is that we have random freezes and crashes from WinUp so if you want to run the test with Appium, you need to have this driver running. And in the middle of tests, you would notice that it would just randomly stop working, and you see that it crashed or it freeze, and it's really hard to debug those issues. Crashes are quite easy to do, freezes are not. And then also, it does not perform well with custom UI elements, and Windows UI frameworks are evolving, and especially with new elements, you would have this case where, for example, you have this fancy new button that you want to automate. It tries to click it, and then the click happens on some corner of the screen, and then you have flaky test. Another issue is that some actions were not being performed at all. So when you see that your in test, you see that one test case failed, you try to analyze it, you see that in the logs, all your action was registered, the element was found, but in reality, nothing happened. Then also, scrolling to elements is unpredictable, because sometimes it would not fully scroll until element is fully visible, and then again, it can click it, your test is flaky again. And this also screenshot represents the current state really well, because there are 1,100 issues logged. And the reason behind it is that it is an abandoned framework. You can see that the last update that we got was 5 years ago. And remember, this is officially maintained Microsoft product. And the last update that we got was this. Sorry for a long text, but the LDR is that we are focusing on the Windows 11 release. We are not going to release any new updates, but after Windows 11 is more stable, we might come back. And when you see those comments, you know that they didn't come back with any update. And when you start seeing those memes, you know that people are getting desperate, and I was too. And this meme reflects current state really well, because that's basically what I was expecting during the first years when I was using it, because I thought that this is the go-to solution. Microsoft will maintain it. We will get new features. And basically, Microsoft created Windows, so we might get some new and fancy features. And yeah, Microsoft just ghosted us. So we decided that we need to look for a new tool, and let's analyze those other tools. And the first tool is SQLX, and this is an image recognition test automation tool. So let's be honest, it's only good if there are no other options, because it's quite difficult to write a maintainable and stable test, because you have, for example, different resolutions on different devices. You can your UI can be reflected differently. It is also quite slow because it has to analyze those images. You can also achieve limited coverage because you can mostly perform clicks using those screenshots. Another tool is Catalan Studio, and the only good thing about it is that it has active community, because if we check what's being used under the hood, it's same WinUp, which is basically Appium framework. And which means that it uses WebDriver protocol. So again, we have those random freezes, crashes in the middle of tests. Performance is also the same as with the Appium. It is an enterprise solution, which means now we pay money for that. And it also does not support C#, so I can't involve my developers into writing tests in a with frictionless way. Then we have Ranorex. So this tool is slightly better because it does not use Appium under the hood. And the good thing is that it does not use WebDriver, which means that we don't have those random freezes crashes. It supports C#, so I can involve my developers easier into writing tests. It has active community. Again, I can get documentation and help. But again, we are paying money for this solution. It is also slow. Then we also have to use custom development environment, which adds additional friction, again, in writing tests. And reviewing tests is actually quite notoriously difficult, because when you create new tests, not only you have this test class, but on the side, XML file is generated, and you also have to review this, and it's really difficult to do. And the last tool, which is a clear winner, is FlyUI. And the reasons are, first reason is that it does not use WebDriver. So we have this non-scientific graph, So you can see above, we have Appium and FlyUI. And the way FlyUI works, it just directly sends commands to UI automation free. While with Appium, we are sending commands to our proxy, which is WinUpDriver, then it sends those commands to UI automation, and then we have this instabilities and slowness because it adds additional overhead when performing actions. And here's the comparison. So you can see here, we have above FlyUI and below Appium. And you can see that the username was entered again much more quicker because we can set values directly. And the interesting thing is that backend took longer to respond with FlyUI. But even though FlyUI is still faster, it just performed everything that it needed without any delays. With Appium, we are still waiting for those 5 seconds, and now waiting for more 5 seconds. And as you can see, Appium is not desirable because it wastes 11 seconds for this simple flow. Imagine if you have big test suite, then it becomes even worse. Another good thing about this tool is that it offers more automation capabilities, and it is much more flexible. Because if we're going to check official description of FlyUI, and I can confirm it from my personal experience, it says that FlyUI wraps almost everything from the UI automation libraries, which means that everything that UI automation engine supports, it's implemented in FlyUI, but also provides the native objects in case someone has a special need which is not covered yet by FlyUI. So we have a way to extend this library and implement any action we want for our own needs. And for example, if we compare FlyUI and Appium, so we have invoke pattern for buttons. So we can click button without using the mouse. Then we have value pattern. So we can set the value for the text boxes, sliders, again, without using any mouse, without using any keyboard. We have selection pattern where we can set select values from the list boxes or combo boxes. And I know those things, if we compare it to the other frameworks, it's nothing new. It should be common sense. But with Windows automation frameworks, it's really limiting, and FlyUI is so far the only framework that supports it. It's really surprising. It also supports all types of applications. So we have UI frameworks, WinUI, VPF, Win32, WinForms, Store Apps, all of them can be supported. You won't be limited. Also, it supports WebDriver if it's really needed. Personally, I do not recommend this, again, because of the issues that we had before, but there is an active community-driven project, and I can imagine some use cases where you would like to have this. For example, if you want to have one framework for different platforms. So you have this possibility and flexibility. If you really need it, you can implement it. It is also much more stable. So I'm sharing just casual Tuesdays pipeline, and for context, we are running full test suite for every commit. And we are able to do this because FlyUI is much more stable with those more capabilities with actions. It also doesn't have those random crashes. So when we combine everything, we can achieve those beautiful results. But the maintenance is still relatively minimal with FlyUI. If we're going to check the update schedule, you can see that we got an update on February 25th, which is on Windows standards, it's good. And that, but if we check the second update, it happened 3 years ago, which is not good. But as you can see, maintainer confirmed it. Maintenance is minimal. But I can also, he also mentioned that the base framework should be very stable. And personally, I can confirm it. The framework itself is implemented in a really robust and scalable way. So you can, if you have any problems, you can easily address this by extending some actions or maybe reworking them. Unlike with Appium, it's really difficult to do this. Let's move on to practical tips. So if you want to implement Windows automation tests, you need to implement Nugget packages, and you will need those 3. So you will have FlyUI core, where all core actions are stored. Then you have UIA3 library to use this engine. And then you need some assertion library, which is an unit, XUnit. You can choose anything you want. And the good thing about FlyUI is that you write the test and you just run it and it works. For example, if you have WebDriver, you have to launch the WebDriver, handle it, and yeah, that adds additional friction. FlyUI also supports UI automation too if it's really needed, but personally I recommend use UI automation free because as you can see from the numbering, it supports more modern applications. So personally I was writing for VPF and WinUI apps and I had not that many issues. And then we have Store Apps that it also supports. With WinUI 2, It in theory is stable with Win32, more stable with Win32 apps, with Windows Forms, or if you have like really strange use case that you want to run tests on Windows 7. So you have this capability if it's really needed, but use UI automation free in most cases. Then FlyUI has one drawback, that readability is quite bad. As you can see, the actions are quite extensible, but also you have to configure it with lots of actions. You have this window, find first descendant, then you have selector as text box. It's just too long. And I try to automate this flow that is really simple. I'm entering username, entering password, clicking sign in, and waiting until I'm logged in. And you can see it's really big test case. So you can refactor it, and when you refactor it, you can have this simple structure. You can tell that I want an element by some selector, which is automation ID. You provide the arguments, and then you perform some action. Really simple. And the way I achieve this is by implementing an element class. And this class is also relatively simple. You have a function where element class is created, and that element class stores your selectors. And then those selectors are being used to perform actions. And my actions looks like this. So I have this extensible function, and the way extension function work is basically we tell that for every element every element object, we can perform this action no matter where. And this way you have like a really easily readable and really easy to use actions. And I also shared where you can see all of my actions that I implemented. So hopefully after the TestCon, the slides will be shared. And also, just to improve it a bit more, obviously we have to introduce page, or as we call it in the company, robot pattern. And I will just briefly explain it. I think most of you know this, but this is how my robot looks like. So above, I have my elements saved, so I do not duplicate it. Below, I have functions. Then we perform some actions that we want. We return the robot that we want. So we could change the actions. And then there's a little bit interesting thing about verifications. Some people like to create a separate file for verifications. But personally, I like to keep everything in one place so you can see the whole context. So I just created an inner class, which is called verifications. And for every robot, we have this class. Then we extend this robot class, and then we can access all elements we want inside. And then we have this similar structure with verifications. And below, I create objects so I could expose those assertions. So this flow is really simple to use and really readable. Another thing about FlyUI, it's quite interesting. They don't offer out-of-the-box way to wait until element is displayed, until it exists. So it doesn't have those waiting functions. But what it offers retry utilities. So here is the simple example. While I'm trying to wait until element is displayed, so you have this retry while false, and then you loop it until some condition is met. And if it times out, then it will throw a clean error. And for the navigation, you should use actions that don't require pointers. So I mentioned before, we have invoke pattern, value pattern, selection pattern, and this is just a small thing, but it improved my execution speed a lot. Also, stability was increased because using pointer in Windows automation is actually quite unpredictable because, for example, sometimes the window might not be focused, which means that you need to perform two clicks, one to focus and one to click. So that's why you have sometimes flakiness. With invoke, you don't have it. Then also simple tip, disable animations. Windows offers it. Half a year ago, it was quite buggy with WinUI. Not all animations were disabled, but I checked recently and now it works quite well. Those animations are disabled now. Then if you want to inspect UI, use FlyUI Inspect. It's open source tool, and basically everything that is detected in this inspection tool, it can be used in FlyUI tests. And as you can see on your left, there is a UI tree, and on your right, there are attributes. And the main ones that you need is automation ID and name. So automation ID, I don't need to explain it with the name. Interesting thing is that if you notice, there is no attribute text. So basically, if you have a button with label, for example, submit, the value of the name will be submit. So every text value that you have in your in your like button will be reflected in this attribute. Then we have CI setup. So this is actually quite a big topic, and this should be like a separate talk. But I just want to provide a simple suggestion. I have this cheap setup and expensive setup. The reason why I suggesting this, because when I came to DevOps engineers and asked for this need that I needed to have Windows image for running tests, they told me, yes, we can, but it will take quite some time because usually DevOps engineers are not quite familiar with Windows. So it will take time to implement. So meanwhile, I decided that I still need to run my tests on CI. So I just took a simple laptop. It can be also stationary PC. And you can install some virtualization tool, which is Hyper-V VirtualBox. You set up your virtual machine, install the runner. Voila, you have tests running, which is not blocking you anymore. And then when your DevOps guys implement it, you can migrate to Docker images, Packer images. Personally, in our company, when we did the analysis, we saw that Packer handles those images in a more easily maintainable way. So we decided to use that instead of Docker. I also prepared some learning resources if you want to understand how to write those tests. So I have tutorial that I used for when writing my first tests. There is also real world usage repository. So Proton is open source product. So you can just open this solution, the link that I shared, and you can see everything that I implemented and just take inspiration. Also, there is UI automation documentation, so the engine that Microsoft implemented. So this helps to understand in depth what capabilities does Windows automation have. And then let's check what is the possible future. So surprise, surprise, it's AI agents. And why? Because there are three simple reasons. I won't repeat what you hear every day in this conference. It can self-heal it. It is relatively easy to implement, so you can provide like simple human readable sentences. It is also somewhat already proven to work. For example, we have Journeys for Android Studio, we have Pilot, and there are many, many tools in the market that are quite designed for testing purposes. But is it practical at current stage? I don't think so. Because if it is still relatively slow and it's still in experimental stage, so I don't think it can replace your handwritten tests yet. But keep an eye on this. Maybe in future we will have something promising. So for example, I want to show you this simple demo from Journeys for Android. This is how I imagine we could have something like with Windows. So you can see here, like we have simple written commands that we want to perform some actions, assert something. On the side, we also see the reasoning, why it performed something, why it asserted something. And yeah, we have this simple summary. So looks simple to use and looks promising. And you can see here, it also analyzes it. Then I checked some AI agents for Windows, and I like this cursor touch. It's not really like meant for testing, but it's basically just a simple agent where you, as you can see, write simple command that you want, and command is change from dark mode to light mode. It processes it, and actually maybe under the hood UI automation engine is used, at least looking how mouse is being used. You can see it extends the start menu, it clicks on the settings, but this is what I'm talking about. It is really slow. With Fly UI, it would take me like 5 or 10 seconds to finish these tests, but now it takes 50 seconds. And you can see here, it goes to personalization, it goes to colors, then it looks where is the theme, which again takes time, and then it finally changes after some time. Now, yeah, so you can see it's not at the moment, not at the desirable stage. So from this talk, I want from you to take out those things. Fly UI is clear winner for UI automation. Use WebDriver only when it's necessary. On Windows, it's quite buggy. It also keep an eye on AI agents. Like I mentioned before, it has potential. And the main thing is that Windows applications automation is actually tough. So if you look from the technical perspective, it's quite simple, but then you have lots and lots of specific issues for Windows, and you might like during some stage lose hope, because I had this issue during my first 1.5 years when I was using Appium. During some moment I just accepted like my test will be flaky. It's impossible to automate Windows. But then, yeah, one day I decided, no, this can be. I just looked for a different tool, and FlyUI actually managed to solve this. And with the right tools and right approach that I showed, you can achieve really beautiful results. So thank you. I'm Lukas Makaravicius. You can scan QR code if you want. You can ask questions or write email if you want.
Yes. Okay. Now we have Q&A session. Before we jump here, maybe someone wants from the audience to really speak their question. No one? Okay, then we will go on with what we have. So, can FlyUI automate apps that use a browser engine like WebView, and does it work with all Windows apps?
Yeah, I actually had one use case where I had to automate WebView. It it can't, to be honest. Like there are some ways how you can work around this. So you can use keyboards, which is not really stable and scalable way. There are some limited way to extract some elements from the web view, but you will be able to extract only native ones, not what's inside. So yeah, it does not work really well with the web views. In theory, you can try to attach, for example, Playwright inside that web view. Maybe you can combine those frameworks.
Okay, I hope this answers the question. Next one is actually sounds a bit tricky to me. Have you tried to validate if network traffic actually goes through the VPN tunnel?
Yeah, so there is two ways. There is one way that I implemented this. It's just simple. Basically, I can just make a request, for example, to some endpoint, get the IP. I can see that network has went through, and I can check the IP. So this is a simple way. In theory, you can also attach Wireshark and try to extract those events, but personally, I do not recommend this. This will be too complex. So just simply ping some endpoint that where you can get the IP address, and then you will verify if VPN is being used.
Okay, then the next one would be, yeah, we had big problem automating AUT relying on proprietary UI element libraries for Dev Express. So FlyUI also didn't help. Any tips?
Could you elaborate what is AUT? Ah, okay. We had big problem. Dev Express. Yeah, this is a bit tough to say because I need to get more context and then maybe I can answer. So maybe after the talk, come to me, provide me more context how it works, and then maybe we can think of something.
Okay. I think the first question is the repetition now, right? Yeah. Okay, then we can throw it away and continue. Okay. Have you tried to validate if network traffic actually goes through the VPN tunnel?
Duplicate.
Oh, no. But the first one is also duplicate. Is it? Yes. So please kick it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where did we stop? That's a little bit. Yeah. How about Tosca? Okay, that's something I cannot elaborate. Who wants to elaborate this question? Yes. Okay, I will bring you the.
Personally, I did not really compare it, so I can't really tell exactly which one is better. But from my experience, from all of those frameworks that I showed, FlyUI was a clear winner.
Okay, then we have once again a little bit of repetition of questions, but we have oh, the one that we didn't have yet. How huge products you automate also ARP enterprise systems?
Mm. So I was automating mainly, we had two products, which was VPN, which I mentioned. And then we have also a Drive product, which we used also. So in both cases, it was working really well.
Okay, I hope this answers the question. Okay. Have you also evaluated Nova Windows driver with Appium?
No, this one was not evaluated.
Okay. And yeah, I think we have enough time, right? So what is your opinion of the test complete tool to use for desktop app?
Yeah, so this one I looked at it briefly. Personally, I like more code written tests, and with test complete, I think it does not offer like more capabilities than it can than Fly UI basically.
Okay, then last question, I would say. So will Fly UI work for multi-platform desktop applications written in Java?
If it's using WebView, not really, but if it's using native elements, then it will.